Zelda franchise is one of the most consistent when it comes to the quality of each game. The lowest scoring on Metacritic is The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes for the 3DS, which still scored a great 73 out of 100. So no matter which Zelda game you decide to play, you are pretty much guaranteed that you are in for a good time. Unless you are playing Zelda The Wand of Gamelon, I mean, you just need to look at it to understand. Because so many of these games end up scoring a 9 out of 10 or higher, it makes the question, which Zelda game is the best of all time, perhaps one of the hardest in all of gaming to answer. Now, if you are a basic bitch, and I most definitely am, then the answer to that question is Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. However, the more people you ask, the more varied the responses will get. Is it Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess, or perhaps Wind Waker for the GameCube? Or is it one of the weirdest Zelda games ever released, Majora's Mask? Growing up, Majora's Mask was often ignored and never really spoken about. It was like the weird cousin or uncle we all have, the Kevin McAllister of the family. You can also be forgiven for never playing this game because according to Wikipedia, Majora's Mask was released in North America on the same day as the PlayStation 2! The sales were good with 3.3 million copies sold worldwide, but that result would have been disappointing to Nintendo. Especially if you compare it to the 7.6 million copies sold of Ocarina of Time. Most reviewers at the time giving Majora's Mask an incredibly high score, Eurogamer scoring it a perfect 10 out of 10. Which goes to show that Nintendo releasing Majora's Mask the same day as PlayStation 2 could have been a very costly mistake on Nintendo's behalf. Luckily for Nintendo, my love for Ocarina of Time drove me to rent Majora's Mask from Blockbuster Video. I remember the excitement I felt, ready to relive the same experience that Ocarina of Time gave me. Feelings that I couldn't explain at the time as a 9-year-old, butterflies in my stomach, a slight tingle in my pants. I loaded up the game. There he was, Link in all of his glory. Oh, who's this? It's the mask from the cover. Why has he turned us into a Deku Boy thing? Where is my sword? My shield? Everything that I worked so hard for in Ocarina of Time, all gone. My 9-year-old mind couldn't fathom what was happening, and to make matters worse, I only had a few hours of gameplay before this weird-ass moon crash landed into the town, causing me to start all over again. The strange tingle in my pants, the butterflies I felt in my stomach, all gone, and replaced with this weird feeling I now identify as anxiety. There was nothing I hated more as a kid than timed missions in games. And before I even realized you could reset the clock, I had given up and moved on. And sadly, I haven't played another new Zelda game since. I'm the fakest Zelda fan of all time, if I can even call myself one. I own and collect Zelda games, but up until last week, I'd only ever completed one. So I have decided that I will slowly play through all of the Zelda games one by one, but starting with Majora's Mask. I truly think that this game deserves a second try. The gameplay you are seeing is from the Switch version of the game, but to make the experience feel authentic, I played with a Switch Nintendo 64 controller. Due to time restrictions with the development, the team at Nintendo decided to reuse a ton of character designs, sounds, music, and weapons. It was an odd choice. I mean, am I simply to ignore the fact that you strike an uncanny resemblance to the little girl that I've already met? Also, is there a backstory to this owl? Why is he so wise and able to help us so much? Let me know in the comments. The familiar sights and sounds might seem like a bad choice, but as a fake Zelda fan, the familiar musics and faces made me feel right at home. Ocarina of Time is not only a joy to look at and play, but the story itself is a deep and emotional roller coaster. The main villain is a larger-than-life and very intimidating figure, and Princess Zelda an innocent girl that was born into the wrong family. From the get-go, the stakes are incredibly high, and while the stakes in Majora's Mask are arguably higher, you know, because of the whole moon thing that's about to destroy the world and all, I couldn't help feel that it was missing characters for me to care about. And on a side note, why is this even called a Zelda game? She only appears in it for like 5 seconds as a flashback. A few months after the events of Ocarina of Time, Link sets off to find his fairy Navi. I don't really know why you would want to, she's pretty annoying. During our search, we find ourselves in a dark, mysterious forest. And we are unlucky enough to bump into the Skull Kid, who is wearing a strange mask that we later find out to be named the Majora's Mask. An ancient mask that curses its wearer, forcing them to do ill deeds that could lead to the destruction of the world. Not only does Skull Kid steal Epona and our Ocarina, but he also turns us into a Deku Scrub. No longer can we roll and make the infamous rolling sounds, This curse is soon lifted by the happy mask salesman, who then demands that we retrieve the Majora's Mask, while he stands in the clock tower and does nothing the whole time. When I was 9 or 10 years old playing this game, I honestly thought that that was it. The whole game would be us as a Deku Scrub. No more height, no more hat, no more sight. I can't be the only idiot child that thought this, and I was a little disappointed that I gave up that easily. As an adult, the more I started to play this game, the more I realized that this game would have been far too complicated for me to beat as a 9-year-old. Ocarina of Time had its difficulty, the infamous water temple and some tough boss fights, but it was achievable as a child. However, Majora's Mask seemed to be the complete opposite. It was less of an action game with amazing exploration and more of a puzzle game. Now, I'm not saying that no one beat this as a kid. When we were kids, we only had like one new game every 6 months, so we were sort of forced to play them over and over again, and we sort of just figured it out somehow. But I have never been so humbled by a video game before. I was looking up guides left and right, constantly getting stuck, seeing the solution, punishing myself like the albino in Da Vinci Code. I would have never worked half of these puzzles out. Am I really that stupid? Well, yes I am, but that doesn't mean that the puzzles are easy or medium difficulty. They are very tough, and most of them require multiple steps to complete. You quickly learn that the 3-day reset time is the least of your problems because it's these goddamn temples that get harder and harder as you progress. Relentless backtracking, trying to constantly remember what bits of information I had and getting it all to make sense. It was like I was a detective following around the townsfolk, figuring out their every move, trying to solve the puzzle of each citizen to see what they had to offer me as a reward at the end of their quest. Sometimes it made sense, like rescuing the cows from the alien invasion and acquiring the cow mask that granted you access to the bar at nighttime. And other times I would be completely clueless as to what to do next. I spent hours trying to get to this purple-haired kid wearing his mask, asking everyone in and outside of town if they knew who he was. using bombs to ring the bell to ambush him, all sorts of things that made sense to me but simply didn't work. Other times I would get lucky and come across the right NPC at the right time, like this invisible guard that gives you a rock mask, or this dancer on this large rock that gives you one of the most creepy masks in the game. I spent hours in Clocktown visiting each building multiple times, trying to figure out as much information about each NPC as possible. And then to me it felt like I had seen every dialogue option in the town. So it was time to finally give up on the town missions and head out to my first temple. It was time to explore Termina Fields to find the first of the 4 giants that will help stop the destruction of the world. As you begin to explore, you start to learn that the Skull Kid has made quite an impact on Termina, and not in a good way. The river of Woodfall has been poisoned, its princess kidnapped. The town of Snowhead is experiencing its coldest winter ever, food is scarce, and this annoying baby won't stop crying. The citizens of the Great Bay Coast are missing the eggs of their young, the waters they usually swim becoming dark and impossible to navigate. The Icana region filled with undead, scary monsters that are roaming around free because of the Skull Kid. Each area hit worse than the last, all home to large, intimidating boss fights that need to be defeated to free the giant souls within. The main story is a very dark and sad tale, and Skull Kid is in the middle of it all. Not only is he cursed by the mask itself, but he also has a complicated backstory that all ties in really well. Now that we have freed all 4 giants, it's time to face Skull Kid at the end of the 3-day cycle. With the help of the giants that resemble the Titans from Attack on Titan, we stop the moon from crashing into the Earth. It's at this point that the Majora's Mask reveals that it used Skull Kid's weaknesses to do its bidding, and with that he flees up into the moon, and it's our job to follow. We are then treated to a series of boss fight transformations that would have given me nightmares as a child. The Majora's Mask is disgusting. What are these weird tentacle things? We defeat the Majora's Mask, save the world from destruction, and the game ends. After I finished playing, I learnt that if you collect every mask, you are shown the real ending. It's some weird cryptic shit that people are still trying to decode to this day. It's pretty cool, but it's extremely weird. I'm sort of glad that I found it, but I'm glad that I didn't have to play through it. It's a fairly straightforward story, and it's one that I enjoyed, but there are still mysteries that surround it. Who is the Skull Kid really? Who is the happy mask salesman? Why does the Goron Elder's mouth look like an asshole? For me, where the most enjoyment came from this game was in the side missions. Earlier on, I mentioned that there isn't really any characters that I care about, and for the most part, that is true. But if you play through this game thoroughly, Link ends up making an impact in everyone's lives. Just like in Ocarina of Time, Link is a mysterious young boy that goes out of his way to help strangers. You feel incredibly smart and intelligent when you figure out a cool side story that goes on for like 3 days, but then you feel really dumb when you find out you've missed like 5 side missions. Where Majora's Mask struggles the most for me is that you will read the same dialogue, see the same cutscenes, perform the same songs over and over again, and it's incredibly repetitive. I don't mind using the ocarina to advance or slow down time, but I had to watch these guys fly through the air at least 12 times. I watched the tear fall from this goddamn moon's eye half a dozen times. I revisited this hotel like 50 times to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And in the end, I was so frustrated that I ended up missing like half of the masks by the end of the playthrough. I can't be the only person person that experienced the game like this. It felt magical in the beginning. My book was slowly filling up with new quests. But by the third temple, I was so over feeling like an idiot that I just decided to focus on the main story. We're going to complete this game as fast as we can. I mentioned this already, but why are the temples so incredibly complicated? Navi was annoying, but at least she told me what to do constantly. I spent hours in this game's version of the water temple, stared at this chest for like 30 minutes before realizing all I had to do was hookshot to it. Things that seem simple are overcomplicated. Things that seem overcomplicated are often simple. No wonder people love this game, because it makes them feel like a genius when you solve each temple. I am so insecure about how hard I found Majora's Mask to complete. I should probably just give up with this gaming YouTube channel and start making a channel about something that I'm good at, like gaining weight. What's even worse is after finally figuring out how to make it to each boss, we are greeted with some of the most underwhelming boss fights ever. Aside from one or two, they are all so easy to beat. Even against Majora's Mask, I would end up just taking 4 or 5 bottles full of cow's milk and beating it, no problems. I feel like Nintendo took a game series that was made for everyone and released Majora's Mask that was focused more towards adults only. And sure, you can blame poor timing of its release to its average sales, but there was also no word of mouth with this game. No young kids talking about it at recess. No older brother telling his younger brother that he must play it. Obviously, some kids spoke about it at recess, but you get my point. Now, when I make these YouTube videos, I'm very mindful that most people watching this video love the game that I'm talking about. Just because I think Majora's Mask isn't close to Ocarina of Time doesn't mean I don't think it's a good game. Like I said earlier, no matter which Zelda game you decide to play, you were pretty much guaranteed that you are in for a good time. And that's what I had with Majora's Mask, a good time. The combat was still amazing and ahead of its time. It looked better, ran faster, and the addition of different masks that gave you unique abilities was very creative and cool. The bunny ears that gave me a speed boost made me realize how slow Link ran without them. The fact that you can swim fast as a Zora or walk over lava as a Goron was something that I am glad I was able to do. And the best part of the game was that each item retained their uses throughout the whole game. Nothing was useless after its first use, and that was something that Ocarina of Time struggled with. No, I don't think that this game is underrated, and I don't think it's awful. It's a great entry in the series, but it didn't capture that same magic feeling that Ocarina of Time gave me. Alright, that's my review. Look, I am planning on playing all of the Zelda games on GameCube, Wii U, Nintendo Switch, over the next like 5-6 years. I can't just focus on them all this year. There's other games I've got to play, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is going to take me a whole month. Alright, anyway, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, see ya.